Welcome friends to another Wheel of Time video. Today we look at the Age of Legends as portrayed in the world of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. So spoilers for that section of that throughout. Let's get into it. As stated there, the great research college of Kalamdan, located in Versailles, with its magnificent floating sphere, drew seekers of knowledge from all across the land to study and discover new wonders of science and the one power. Sho-wings filled the sky, and jokars moved along the ground as people were carried and cargo was moved between cities. What was treasured here was status and honour, not money, and this came to you through serving the community. One group at this time, the Aes Sedai, are made up of both sexes at this time and termed the servants of all. Only 2 to 3% of the world's population could channel. Many professions were dominated by them. Healing, because medicine could not do as much. Only death was beyond the one power. Apart from old age, you would only die when too far from an Aes Sedai restorer. Mining was also another place one power could be used. It would be used to remove pure ore without destroying the land it lay under, and they could also make alloys stronger than anything you could make naturally. Though rare, they could then be reworked by conventional methods into whatever the user wanted to. Seed singing could produce an optimum amount of grain from farmland. Ogier, Nim and Darshain Ail worked together to ensure that it made the crops protected from blight and insects. Also, the weather could be manipulated to help with this, and it is heard that drought, floods and natural disasters are not known at this time. They were able to make living constructs and chara trees, where one of these was they gave off an aura of peace. Another, the Nim, were living beings with the power to use the one power to aid in plants and growing things. Then, as the book tells it, Aes Sedai endeavour included design and construction of Angreal, Sa-Angreal and Tir-Angreal. Angreal and Sa-Angreal, as mentioned previously, enhance the ability to channel. Tir-Angreal, however, were tools made to perform a specific function. Some had to be activated and energized with one power and could only be used then by Aes Sedai. Others could be used by anyone. We don't know how close the Aes Sedai were in terms of governing, but they did have considerable power and influence at times. The Hall of Servants regulated the channelers and had branches everywhere. Since Aes Sedai, as we mentioned, had to work in teams, there were rules of conduct, law and punishment handled by the guild. An elected head sits on the high seat. One of those people, Luz Therin Telamon, used 9 rods of dominion and the oath rod, studied used by the Aes Sedai today, might be one of those. It makes the oath sworn binding unless the swearer loses their access to the one power. This is an example of a Tir-Angreal. Now with a small number of channelers, they must be used carefully, so an Aes Sedai would not be expected to maintain or energize a machine, for example, but could make the technology for one, and then other non-channelers could operate them. For example, the book tells us the great Jerome, or floating sphere of Kalamdan, hovers high above the university. It was discovered and refined through the use of the one power, but the sphere was built by normal people and suspended through the use of the world's own magnetic and gravitational fields. This technology was good for the environment. Pollution from them was unknown. Waste byproducts would be dispersed on a sub-molecular level. The same was the home of the Kalamdan, a great university mentioned earlier. It was the centre of the research and development during this age. The Jerome was placed in the air because of the skill of the designers, the triumph of art. You had to fly to get into it with transport or the one power. Amongst the other cities, Paradisen, central seat of government and crown jewel of them all, not only contained wonders of architectural genius amongst its spires and towers, but also the Hall of the Servants with its columns and shimmering Elstone. So as with the example of the Jerome which I mentioned not long ago, the use of the one power let artistic whims be indulged. Plant life was woven into the urban fabric, towers that could touch the sky, rainbow domes, slim monorails and walkways would be suspended in the air between buildings. Chora trees shared their sense of contentment with others. People would walk and take transport they needed to only. For short, mass transport. Vehicles of that type could use anti-gravity technology. Jokars, jumpers and hoverflies would carry a passenger and also have cargo capacity. Jokars have four-wheel or types of hovercraft technology. Jumpers and overflies float above the ground at various heights. Going long distance, you would need a sho-wing. It varied in design to suit its purpose. They could be used for mass transport or personal use. You could also use it to go overseas. Travelling is another form of transport. You open the doorway with the one power that lets you step from one place to another, or skimming, where you could make use of a platform or steps in the void outside the pattern to carry the traveller from one point to another. Portal stones allowed dimensional travel and otherworld travel within the wheel's universe, and the Aes Sedai could use them freely. One power derived technology even filtered down to normal citizens. We would recognise them from our world, technology that looks and acts like televisions, phones, heating, light, fridges. People could live during this age for up to 150 to 200 years, thanks to the one power being used, and the channelers themselves would live longer. Financial gain was not common, as everything was plentiful. Those who had the least were still comfortable. Crime still happened, though mainly of violence and passion. Restraint was not wanted by society until it was absolutely needed, and someone who committed a crime, that person would be constrained in some manner for committing further act, constrained with a binding. There were few major conflicts in this time, as most of the motives for those conflicts had been eliminated. Economy was stable over the world, removing poverty or extreme financial loss. The harvesting and distribution of food was aided with technology, and the one power removing both starvation and deprivation. Status was more important over greed. The Aes Sedai served mostly the community and not themselves, as that offered greater reward. The few arguments that emerged would be smoothed over with meditation, so war did not exist, at least until we move into the very end of this age. Now friends, I turn this over to you. Fancy living in the age of wonder? Anything I missed? What technology still exists in the main age of the books? Have you flown a shokar during the Age of Legends? Comment down below.